Hello, and in this video we're going to look at the comments in the videos regarding PayPal and QuickBooks Online.
Told him I can be a fighter if you want. I'll be there to catch you if you fall. I can make it brighter when it's dark, I told him I would do it all for you, and I know you do it for me too.
Hello, my name's Aaron Patrick. I'm a Chartered Accountant, Certified UK Trainer and a UK Reseller. Now, on the last video, what we talked about was how to use QuickBooks Online Self-Employed. And one of the parts in there was how to connect your PayPal account. Now, in the comments below, you'll notice that on that video, people were talking about how they've had issues with PayPal itself. So, best thing for us to do now is to have a look at that, see how we can fix those issues, and then we can go and make sure that we're getting all the data in nice and quickly. Now, when it comes to the issues themselves, you'll notice there is actually 3 things we need to worry about. Those 3 things are keeping PayPal updated, dealing with PayPal fees, and making sure we've got our PayPal capital sorted. Now, one thing to note about this though is we've got to be careful here. Now, QuickBooks Self-Employed is the first product we've had a look in a lot of detail regarding reselling and how it can work for you. But in this video, I'm going to show you how that we can use the full version of QuickBooks to make our lives easier. And this could be a real consideration in terms of which version to use, QuickBooks Self-Employed versus QuickBooks Online. Now, let's first of all look at dealing with this issue number 1. The issue number 1 is obviously to do with the fact that we need to make sure it's updated. Issue number 1. Now, issue number 1 is about making sure that the transactions have all come into QuickBooks. So one of the tips you can do when you bring up self-employed is that you can go into account over here and look at PayPal UK. Now, if I'm looking at PayPal UK here, you'll notice it's only gone from the 29th of the 5th to the 22nd of the 5th, 2020. And when I look at my main account, you'll notice I've got other transactions. Now, I won't expect the 30th of May to be in there yet because they only happened yesterday. So I'm expecting this to happen over time. But everything before the 22nd are transactions that QuickBooks hasn't actually brought in for me. So what I need to do now is I need to bring in those transactions so I've got a full picture. To do that, I need to actually upload the transactions manually. Now, the reason this is happening is because the way QuickBooks works. QuickBooks is basically going to connect to your bank account, or in this case your PayPal account, and what it's going to do, it's going to add those transactions directly into QuickBooks for you. Now, when you first make that connection, it may not go far enough back, so you may need to bring in some information for it and basically fill in the gap. Also, with PayPal, we have had instances, and it's only relating to PayPal, where sometimes the transactions don't always come through, so you may have to plug some holes as well. That's why bringing this view that I've got over here into play and showing this down as we've got all those just the PayPal accounts means you can go through and make sure your transactions are there. This is another reason why, in my opinion, the full version of QuickBooks is so much stronger at dealing with PayPal, because as you'll see when we look at it from the main version, you're going to have it a lot easier and a lot easier to understand when it comes through. But let's deal with it on this QuickBooks Self-Employed to begin with. So what I need to do is plug the gap. So I know 22nd of May is my last one there, 22nd of May. So what I need to do now is I need to actually go forward and put these transactions in. Now, the way that it works on PayPal is we need to download the transactions. So I jump into my report section and my activity download. And one of the nice things about here is it's going to remember anything you've done beforehand. So when it comes to actually putting that period in, it's going to give you a nice opportunity to bring it through. So we're only interested in our balance and effecting. And for this one, I want to make sure that I do the last 6 months up until, remember that date, 22nd of May. Press OK. Keep it in a CSV format and create report. Now, the request doesn't happen instantaneously, but you will get a notification of when that's done. While that's being affected though, let's have a look at how that works in the full version of QuickBooks. So we're going to look at this in a lot more detail and we're going to see how this works at different times, but let's concentrate now on the benefits of using there. When it comes to how it works and everything else, we'll see that in a First of all, I need to add that bank account in. So I'm just doing it exactly how I did with the PayPal on our self-employed. I'm going to find PayPal, add PayPal, and put my credentials in. And here it is connecting along. As last time, I'm going to add that, but I'm just going to create a brand new account called PayPal. And I want to bring in it from the 1st of the 5th, 2019. Now remember, you get that whole 90-day warning, so you have to make sure you've updated it 90 days. But as you can see on the main account, it's brought in a lot more transactions for me on the main QuickBooks. Now, one of the nice things about the main QuickBooks as well is it splits it between your bank account and your PayPal account, so you can quickly go in and see which are the two. And we're going to see when it comes to the other issues that we've got, and you'll notice from when we do our other issues that we have with PayPal, we're going to have this a lot easier. We're going to find a way in which on the full version of QuickBooks, we're going to make it easy for us to get everything in there. And right on cue, that is now available to view. So let's download that transaction. Okay, it's a nice CSV for me. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to import the transactions, import older transactions to my PayPal account. Make sure you get the right account shown, browse and download CSV. This will then show you what that is being trying to download is. So you're interested in the date, you don't need to worry about the rest of these, so you can ignore. Description's really important, and finally the amount is really important as well. Once you've got the amount, the description and your date in, you're ready to press continue. It's then going to import that information for you. So that's how you can fill in the rest of the gap. Very similar on the main version of QuickBooks. Up in the top right hand corner there's the option to file upload, and you can follow the same instructions. Now the one key difference between the two though is that, as you can see here on the main version of QuickBooks, it's managed to bring in a lot more transactions for me, so I'm much more confident that it's bringing in the right amount of information. Whereas on the second, or on the QuickBooks Self-Employed one, it only brought in a few transactions and I'm having to plug the gap for the rest of it. Issue number 2. Now, issue number 2 is probably the one you're going to get your head around the most, because that's to do with fees, and fees can be really complicated within the world of accounting. So what we want to do is try and make it as easy as we possibly can. Let's first of all concentrate how we're going to deal with that with the self-employed, and then I'm going to shoot over to the main version of QuickBooks and we're going to be able to see how that can handle it there as well. Okay, now these files have been downloaded, this means we're going to have more information to look at. So the best thing to do is show an example. So here, 15th of the 5th, 2020, we got a rocking horse being sold, £48.24, and we've put that to business income. So that's a transaction currently in QuickBooks Self-Employed. If I move over to my PayPal and try and find that transaction, so what date was it? 15th of May. Here we go. So as you can see on the PayPal, 15th of May 2020, marked Wigglesworth, $48.24 as a net amount. So effectively what's happened here is QuickBooks has only accounted for the $48.24, so it's showing you the net amount that's received in the bank. Now it's difficult at this point because depending on how many numbers that you run through your business, you may be able to just leave it as that is, because you are showing the net effect of what's hit your bank account. So you're already quote unquote taking into account those fees that have been deducted. But really, if you want to complete this as it should be intended to be completed, and you want to make sure that everything's been put into the right place, then you need to make sure you account for the fees as well. Do that, going to have to take one of two methods within QuickBooks Self-Employed. Either you're going to have to do this on a transaction by transaction basis. So for example, that's what we're going to do here with this John Lewis Charles rocking horse, 12 months. Or you're going to have to put it in as probably once a month, and you're going to find out what fees you incurred at that point, and you're going to gross up your income and put the fees in accordingly. So first of all, let's go and see how that's done. The way to do it is, and the most important thing is to understand how much the fee was. So for this particular transaction, I incurred £1.75 of PayPal fees. So now what I want to do is add some transactions. So I click on add transaction, and from the add transaction screen, I need to make sure I get the dates right. So that's the 15th of May. And I'm going to call this transaction gross up of PayPal fee, and this transaction is £1.75. Select category, and the first bit I want to put in is the fee itself, and I would put it under as bank charge. Then you have the opportunity to put some notes here, so maybe you want to put some reference there, and you can even drag and drop a receipt there, so maybe you want a copy of this. So one of the nice things about PayPal is the ability to go in and see the transaction itself. Click on Mark Wigglesworth, and what I could probably do, in fact I'll show you how that's done, if I print this transaction off, save as a PDF, save it to my downloads, and then from here I can either drag and drop it, or I just click on browse, go on the download, and I can attach that receipt or that proof directly to here. But remember, that's only one part of it. So all I've done there is I've accounted for one of the parts of the transaction. So I'm going to press save, but now I need to add transaction, I need to do the same day, gross up pay PAL fees, £1.75. This time I need to show it as business income. Again, I could easily add that receipt or that PayPal transaction. And there, if I then go back to, in isolation, that one transaction. So I've got my brand new rocking horse here, and then I'm going to have the money in and the money out. If I show all transactions, I've got my brand new rocking horse. I've got my brand new rocking horse here, £48.24. I've got £1.75 negative and £1.75 positive. And that there is me showing that transaction in its entirety. Now obviously that's quite a long-winded way, but that is the way you would need to do it if you want to do it by a transaction by transaction. But if you want to do it on a month-by-month basis, which is still applicable, then go to your report section, statements monthly, and download a monthly report. Once you have downloaded a monthly report, included in there, which is around about the second page, you'll have a breakdown of activity summary, which includes a total of your fees, £47.47. And if you want to account for it on a monthly basis, then use that add transaction one more time. This time make sure you're at a month end, so in this case 30th of the 4th 2020, and it's the exact same idea. So gross up PayPal monthly, £47.47, bank charges, receipt, add that actual statement itself, press save. I can do the same again. So this time I'm going to look at putting in gross up PayPal charges. Again, do make sure you get the right date. So in this time 30th of April, and then make sure you've got your fees in, £47.47, but this time I'm going to put that to business income. So as you can see, for both ways there, we're looking at seeing it from the same answer, but crucially what we've done is we've made sure that we've gone in and we've shown it either in its entirety. So if I go back to my April date, you'll see that my transaction is going to be here, grossing up. So I've got the charges and the income. So I'm going to show the full amount of income, then the charges separately. And then I'm also going to be showing on a transaction basis. You can do it that way as well. Now, whichever way is right for you, you decide on that one, but that is your choice. So if I just show you how that looks from a profit and loss point of view. So let's go last 3 months. View, and we look at the turnover. My turnover is now increased by those transactions as well. So there's my £47.71, there's my £1.75. On the full version of QuickBooks though, you do get a little bit of a simpler ride. So let's find that same transaction. 15th for the 5th, we have £49.99 coming in for Mark Wigglesworth. So bring that transaction up on the right hand side for me. I go and find Mark Wigglesworth. It was the 15th. Okay, so from the full version of QuickBooks, you'll notice that it's bringing the transactions in gross. So you've already got the gross amount in there, so that's a good thing. That's going to help you go forward. And all we need to do now is account for those charges. Now all I would do is exactly the same method we've just shown you in self-employed. I would put in a single transaction. So I would go in and I would put a new transaction into QuickBooks itself. So I'd put an expense in, and on the expense I'd put PayPal charges. Make sure it's going against my PayPal account. I don't even have to call it bank charge. I can even call it PayPal charges on this one. And just like before, all I'm going to do is find those charges. Find those fees, £47.47, and press save. Now that's been accounted for. Again, I can attach it as well, so let's just quickly put an attachment in. One of the nice things about the full version of QuickBooks, I can even set this as a recurring payment. So I can say that every month to put this transaction in for me, and then all I need to do then is go get my file or my download, and then I just override it or put in the correct figure at that point. So I can say that each and every month post this transaction. Then if I go to my reports and I go to profit and loss by month and I look at some examples, you'll see now that I have a PayPal charge account accounting for that £47.47 just there. Okay, so that's issue 2 in dealing with charges. As you can see, you basically have 2 ways of doing it. It's really straightforward. Either you're going to be looking at on a month-by-month basis on both of the transactions. So that's dealing with charges. As you can see, it's really straightforward. I would personally do the month by month basis, where you'd basically take account of what's happened per month. Remembering the self-employed app, you're going to need to do both entries. So you're going to have to put the income and then the expense. Whereas in the full version of it, because it's already bringing in gross income, all you need to worry about then is dealing with the expenses on a month by month basis and make sure you account for your fees that way. The next issue number 3, is that working capital. Now, when you're self-employed, one of the things you've got to be careful of is the income you've received is already going to take into account that loan repayment, the capital repayment. So just like we did with the fees, you're going to have to add manual transactions. Now, the only difference with this is you only really need to account for the income that's been lost, because the expense that's been lost isn't really a business expense as such. And within QuickBooks Self-Employed, we can't interact with what we would call balance sheet. What we would normally count for is an adjustment to the balance sheet itself. Now, you can still put the transaction in. So first of all, let's say that I had let's just find some bit of income that we could, this My Little Pony spring design set. Let's say in there that I'd already incurred a repayment of £10. Let's keep it nice and clean. So if I'd incurred a repayment of £10, I've only been paid £50 and 8p, and I need now to include a £10 extra income. I'd do add transaction and make sure my dates are agreeing. I'd call it capital PayPal capital repayment, probably better. I would definitely put some sort of receipt against it as well. So a copy of the transaction, just like we did for the fees. Now with that, what will happen then is at least you're bringing your income up to the right amount, and that's going to make your life easier in terms of hoarding and making sure that income has been accounted. Also, don't forget to record and make sure that the expense itself, so when you pay that one-off interest fee, make sure that's been accounted for. So make sure you put an expense in there, because that is an allowable business expense. The actual transactions, the repaying of the loan though, isn't an allowable expense. That's why we're not recording it on a transaction by transaction basis. On the full version of QuickBooks though, it does make your life easier, so this could be a consideration. So first of all, you can show the loan in its entirety. So all I'm going to do here is first of all create the loan. Okay, so let's say that and assume that this £2,250 is my capital repayment that's come through. If that's the case, then I can actually show this on QuickBooks. I'll do PayPal Capital. I can create a brand new account for it, press save and close, and I'm going to put a memo there of initial funds received. Okay, so that's made my life easier. So now if I go to my dashboard, you'll notice I have my PayPal account here, my business account, and also my PayPal capital loan, and I know how much I now need to pay. Now they're going to charge me interest on that, so let's put the interest in. So let's put an expense, PayPal capital loan, and an expense, and we'll call it bank interest, or let's call it loan interest, and let's say they're going to charge me £250. So I'm accounting for my interest. So now I have £2,500 to pay back. Now, one of the nice things about the main version is you can actually set the repayments to work automatically. How you do that is I'd go to banking and make sure my PayPal selected. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump into what's called the rules section. So part of the rules section is I want to create a new rule every time I have money in to my PayPal account, and I'd want to make sure that I get the description right, so it only includes my actual income, so there's no refunds or anything like that. So I probably want it to exclude refund. So if my description doesn't contain the word refund, then I know it's going to be income, so I'm happy to bring that one in. But then at that point I want to actually assign more. I want to add a split so that basically I can do it on a percentage basis. And what I want to do is say 90% of that going to my sales. Just going to keep no VAT on it for now. And if you wanted to, you could put 10% of it capital, PayPal capital loan. That way, when I look at my banking now, and I can even set it to automatically add, so every time an income comes into PayPal, press save. And what that's doing now is that's automatically adding those transactions for me. Now, what I would probably wouldn't normally use that 90% rule for the sales, because you probably want to show your gross sales, and you would want to show your gross sales at that point. But what this is showing you though is that now that those transactions have been added, so I go to my PayPal account and you'll see I've got all these income that's been split for me nicely. And on my dashboard, if I look at that PayPal capital loan, you'll notice that all those transactions, all those little bits have all been put in, and now it automatically going through and applying that PayPal loan bit for me. And there you have it. There's looking at the 3 biggest issues that relate to PayPal and getting PayPal into your bank account. PayPal is a crucial part for us resellers, but maybe less so when the eBay managed payments is forced upon us. But for now, we need to make sure we get our PayPal exactly spot on. Now, one thing to note about this way that it's doing it and the way that we're actually looking at it is just be really careful. Think about your end results. For example, that last example I showed you where we're looking at the capital repayments, you still going to have to gross up for the missing income, but at least then you can show that repayment going through correctly. But you've got to think about what's your aim here. Your aim is to show your gross sales after all your fees, capital repayments, everything else has been put on it. You want to show those gross income because that's what you want to put on your tax return at the end of each tax year. You can see that most of these ways of doing it is a way of just adding a manual transaction to get the transactions grossed up. But I would make my life a lot easier by using the monthly statements provided by PayPal and gross them up on a month by month basis. The final thing I would always recommend, and it's something we'll have in a separate video, is reconciling those accounts. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that what's included in QuickBooks accounts for everything, and then you want to make sure that you've got £150 in PayPal and £150 in your PayPal QuickBooks account, and that's your way of knowing you've got everything included. And that's it. That's basically looking at PayPal, looking at all the complications that's there, looking at a bit of difference between QuickBooks Self-Employed versus the main QuickBooks. Whichever one you choose, you're going to choose right for your business, but do take into account that you have got a lot more flexibility with the full version of QuickBooks. Now, on that version there, I was showing it with VAT on, but you don't have to have VAT on at all. If you aren't VAT registered, you don't want that complication to come through. We will, in a future video, look at QuickBooks Online, the full version of QuickBooks Online in its entirety for resellers, and see if it's a good fit. And then we can also make sure we've covered everything from a QuickBooks and PayPal integration. Hopefully that's been useful to you. Hopefully that answers some of those questions. Make sure you keep adding your transactions in there. Plug any gaps if there is any gaps. Make sure you're grossing up your sales if you do need to gross up your sales, and do make sure that all the transactions are in QuickBooks. The more transactions you've got in, the better it's going to be for you to be able to make sure you've got all your data in one place. My name's Aaron Patrick. Hopefully you found that useful. Any comments below, I'm always happy to answer them. This is why this particular video was made, because one of you reached out to me and asked me how to deal with PayPal within QuickBooks itself. So I'm more than happy to help out exactly where I can. Remember to like, subscribe, all that jazz. It's going to help us grow this channel and help us make sure that we can get as much content out there as we possibly can. Stay safe, and I'll see you in the next video.
I say yeah. I told him I can be a fighter if you want. I'll be there to catch you if you fall. I can make it brighter when it's dark. I told him I would do it all for you, and I know you do it for me too. I can be a fighter if you want. I can be a fighter. I can be a fighter if you want. I can be a fighter if you want. All the way that I feel, yeah, I know that it's real, 'cause I can get him out of my head. I don't care what we do, everything's feeling new. Even if we stay in bed, my heart is saying yeah.